Hello and welcome to another step-by-step how to tie tutorial video. This is the Cockroach. This is tied on a Moonlit ML091. This is their tube fly. It is a 2/0 hook. Nice big barbless. Underneath everything we have some weight. I have a heavy gauge lead wire. For our tying thread, I'm using a 140 denier flat wax thread. This is the Fly Masters Plus in the color of red. The body consists of a Northern Lights flash. This is the copper brown. Over top of that, I have secured that with some 0.035 upcycled copper wire. The tail material consists of Grizzly Hackle, and the wing is none other than a gray squirrel tail. So let's go ahead and remove our sample. We can secure our hook in the vise, and we'll start things off with this one with our counter wraps of our lead wire, and we're going to wrap that over the whole shank, working our way from the front to the rear. And I do this as a counter wrap. It assists me a little bit, I believe, in securing it down with the thread, because I'm going to start my thread wraps up front. Hold that tag in and work that thread through that lead wire all the way to the rear. And that got our tag end tucked away. And we'll clean up our back end and secure that at the rear. All right, before I go too far with my wire, I'm going to come in with a little bit of Flex Seal and just soak that into those lead wraps, and that will help hold everything forever and ever. All right, we'll go ahead and finish securing down these lead wraps. We'll work our thread back and forth into that Flex Seal, ensuring that that goes, you know where, nowhere, that's where. All right. At this point, let's go ahead and tie in our ribbing, which once again is a upcycled 0.035 copper wire. We'll tie that in on the side and take that just to the back end there. All right, at this point, let's go ahead and grab our hackle feathers. I went ahead and plucked 7 of them off, and I have the tips more or less aligned. We want them somewhat lined up at the back end, and I kind of tie this in somewhat lefty cray style, which is not really aligning the sides, but just focusing more on the tips, and the 2 outside ones I make sure I have those facing out as per the recipe. So we're going to take a nice big bushy tail, hook's length and maybe a little bit more, and we'll tie that in on the back end. We'll secure that with a couple of locking wraps. And we'll bump our thread forward, and we can secure that the rest of the way down up front. Gives us a little bit additional size for the thickness of our body by doing that. You could just trim it off at the back end, but we paid for the whole feather. We might as well use as much of it as possible. We'll finish securing that down all the way to the back end. There we go. Beautiful. All right, at this point, let's come in with our flash. This will cover all those nasty, ugly wraps underneath. And we'll just tie that in here at the back end. Work that all the way to the rear. And now we can take our thread and park it at the eye of the hook. All right, real simple. Let's take this Northern Lights flash and plumber this on with touching wraps. And I'm not pulling down too tight on it. This Northern Lights flash has this beautiful crinkle to it, and I want to preserve that as much as possible. So I'm really not compressing down too tight, which is why I like to come through with this copper wire here in just a moment. Work that all the way up front. And we'll tie that off. Tie it off on the top side, because here in just a moment we're going to use that as a little bit of an underwing. Alright, let's bring our ribbing forward. We'll take one full wrap here at the rear. And we can take an open spiral through this copper Northern Lights. And I picked this color just so it could really disappear behind this copper wire. Everything just kind of works together. Alright, we'll take one extra wrap up front. Keep our ribbons tightened together. We'll secure our copper wire down. A couple tight locking wraps, and we'll come in with our cutters and go ahead and trim that off nice and flush. Beautiful. Alright, at this point, let's go ahead and fold that Northern Lights flash back, and we'll get our thread up the bump. And you know what? That actually worked out as a perfect length, so we'll keep that. Got a couple things to clean up there. Alright, so next we can tie in our wing, which is squirrel tail. I went ahead and took a small chunk, and we're going to run that through our hair stacker, lining up the tips where we can tie that in, covering the body. And I like to take it just about even with the end of the shank of the hook. I'm going to set this on top. I'm going to take two soft wraps, and before I add any more wraps, I'm just going to take my thumb and just kind of work the squirrel tail around to the sides of the shank of the hook. I feel like I got one more going. Beautiful. Make sure we got good solid coverage all the way around, and we can finish securing that down. Alright, we'll go ahead and trim off the butt sections behind the eye of the hook. We'll just clean that up. Beautiful. Now we can just take a quick minute and build our head up front. Really secure that down and build that up. Because we want a nice sturdy cockroach, one to last through the apocalypse. So look out. This fly and a handful of Twinkies will be all that's left. It's got a couple of strays mixed in there. There we go. Alright, let's go ahead and finish this off with a solid whip finish. 1, 2, 3. And we'll do that one more time. 1, 2, 3. Alright, let's go ahead and trim off our tying thread finally, and we can secure everything down with a couple drops of head cement. Again, I'm using some Flex Seal up front here. Give me some good control. I really like the way it absorbs and works its way into the thread. There you have it. That is the Cockroach, tied on a Moonlit ML091 2/0 hook. I'm going to have to keep that rotating until that glue dries, head cement. So anyways, thanks for tuning in. Happy tying, and with this one, tight lines. Peace.